Jay Slater has now been missing in Tenerife for more than 7 days. The search for the 19-year-old from Lancashire is now focused on the northwest of the Spanish island, in a national park close to where he was last seen, waiting for a bus. His family say they're in a living nightmare, refusing to give up hope, even as it diminishes with each passing day. But in the absence of any news, positive or otherwise, once again the social media Sherlocks have emerged. Online speculation has reached fever pitch, with unsubstantiated allegations being made against Jay and his family. Some influencers have even travelled to the island to conduct their own investigations. So, what is the latest on the disappearance of Jay Slater? I'm Neil Patterson. Welcome to the Sky News Daily. Later, we will be speaking to one former Chief Constable with experience in leading precisely this sort of inquiry. But let's begin on Tenerife with our correspondent Shingi Marariki. At 7 days on, Shingi, what is the current state of the inquiry?
So they're targeting their efforts near a town called Masca, which is in a national park in the northwest part of Tenerife. And it's really arid up there. It's really difficult. It's remote. There's a one-track road that goes up there, which is winding, and it's on its way up into altitude. And they keep on picking out little bits to go at. So they started looking at a ravine, which was further south. Then they moved up. And then yesterday they were looking at two outhouses that were further north. So it's almost like they pick areas and gradually move through this national park. When we got here on Thursday, there were drones up there were sniffer dogs, there were helicopters involved in the search. Whereas as a contrast, yesterday, which should have been Sunday, there were a few officers combing these outbuildings down the bottom of a ravine, and it felt a lot more, I don't know if the word's concentrated, but we've definitely seen the size and scale of things in an obvious sense slow down. And just to give you a sense of where I am as well, so we're in a town which is about 7 kilometres from the search area. And the reason this has become a bit more of a relevant location is because Jay's family, who are actually here today, are saying that they've seen CCTV footage that's been passed to them by someone here, which shows him in the square here. It's very grainy, it's very difficult to make out, but it's a reminder that they're quite hopeful and they're trying to chase every lead possible. It's a search operation of two parts. The first part is what's going on the ground near the town of Masca, where he was last spotted. But then there's one going on here in this town, which is being led by the family.
So Shingi, just for those who haven't been following this story for the 7 days in the way in which you have, remind us what we know up until that point when Jay went missing, that last sighting that took place whilst he was waiting for a bus and then chose not to.
Jay was here for a music festival, the NRG festival. It was a 3-night festival, and on the third night he met two men who we understand he then travelled with to a villa in the northern part of Tenerife, which is really different to the Tenerife that we associate with British tourists who maybe might go out on the strip and enjoy the sun. It's a pretty rugged, arid part of Tenerife. From there, we understand that around 8 o'clock, he, instead of getting the bus, went the wrong direction up north towards the mountains. We've spoken to an eyewitness, a lady called Ophelia, who told us that she saw Jay and he asked her a couple of times what time the bus was coming. Then about 20 minutes later, so it's about 8:30 on that Monday, he was then seen by this eyewitness going the wrong direction. She drove her car past him and she was obviously quite confused by that. And also, as part of that timeline, we understand that Jay spoke to his friend Lucy Law, who he was apparently here with at the festival. And that call was around about 8:50 a.m. He said he had no phone battery, that he had pricked his foot on a cactus, that he didn't have water, and that he was trying to walk back. And that walk would have been 11 hours back towards Los Cristianos, which is where he was staying, which is more central in Tenerife.
It strikes me, Shingi, that this part of the island, national park, plenty of trekking routes, of course, but even if he hadn't been dehydrated, even if he hadn't just come off of 3 days of being at a festival and a party with two unknown men, even if he had proper footwear and adequate water, it would still have been a journey and a half, wouldn't it?
Yeah, it would have been a really difficult trek. On Saturday, we spoke to an American hiker who told us that she's pretty fit. She does a lot of this sort of thing. And she was walking in one of the areas where the police were searching near a ravine, and it was really difficult, real mind over matter stuff, a real grind. So for him or anyone to walk down or walk up that sort of arid part of Tenerife would have been really, really difficult. And that also would make any search operation really, really difficult. There's a one-track road to get up there, really windy, and the higher you get, the more there's a bit of a microclimate where it's windy and it's cold and it's sunny one minute, then there's cloud cover the next. It would have been hard.
You mentioned the two men that were among the last to see Jay Slater. Do we know anything more about them? It's been reported that they are British. It's been reported that they have subsequently left the island. Can you confirm any of that?
Talking to the Spanish police, the Spanish authorities, La Guardia Civil, the Civil Guard, they aren't answering many of those questions. We've put a lot of that to them, but there hasn't been much more that we can say. Ophelia, the eyewitness, who we understand through a booking agency, worked out the arrangement for those two men to stay there. Again, didn't have much more information apart from the fact that they stayed one more day and then they left. So that is all we know. The questions are still out there. We'll be trying to ask them constantly, but their identities, apart from them being British and apart from them being with Jay and heading up there, are still shrouded in quite a bit of mystery. Spanish police won't tell us if they're talking to them in any shape or form, whether there's any sort of element of them being involved in this investigation.
Shinga, you mentioned the fact that the family, of course, are close to where you are right now. I mean, dear God, I can only imagine what is going through Jay's mother, Debbie's, mind at a time like this. Obviously, they will be incredibly stressed. They will be incredibly worried. What are they saying publicly?
So I spoke to Jay's dad on Saturday. He had been to retrace Jay's steps, and he was incredibly emotional. I can't begin to stress that enough. There are points where he would give me an answer on camera and then walk away and then come back. It's almost like trying to compose himself because of what has happened. And his main point was he just wants his boy back, and he really, really hopes that someone's helped Jay off the mountain, which obviously you and I looking at it would see as highly unlikely, but they're really trying to cling on to hope. Saw him today as well. He was in this town square here and just handing out leaflets, but looking at places where he could stick some up. And really, it boils down to desperation. He's a father who doesn't know where his son is, and when journalists go up to him, and there's quite a few people trying to discuss it with him, one of his bigger points is, how would you feel if you were a dad and you were in my position?
What's been the response from the island, the islanders?
Here, for example, in Santiago del Tid, which is the next town along from Masca, where a lot of the search is, there's just people seem quite puzzled. People are putting missing posters outside of their shops and their businesses for a British young man who's been missing for a week now. There's that air of, I would say, confusion as to how this has happened. And I suppose the size of the search and the size of the story, the fact that there are British journalists on top of a hill that's usually a fairly popular hiking route. There are as many points it feels like, journalists are giving hikers a run for their money in terms of numbers. And again, people are perplexed. The hikers you talk to say things like, when you come up here, you need to be ready and you need to be prepared. The local business owners we talk to, again, just perplexed about the scale of the interest that we have in this story, which is obviously being pushed on by social media. I'd say confusion and interest are the kind of main emotions, but just as a kind of small snippet, when I spoke to Ophelia, the business owner who lives above the Airbnb I went to, then there are other journalists, and then by the end of the day, she's pretty tired of explaining what she saw happen, and again, pretty bewildered as to how there is this much of a kind of clamour around this.
As of this moment, this remains a missing persons inquiry rather than something more concerning.
Yeah, that's right. And as I've said, we've tried to speak to the Spanish police essentially every morning at the very least. But they say because this is an ongoing search and rescue, an ongoing missing persons investigation, they cannot comment. I don't think they'll go further. You would like to think at some point maybe there's a press conference or some kind of discussion as to how the search is going. But most of what we get from them is videos that they upload, kind of sharing snapshots and snippets of the search, talking to people informally on the ground, like the civil guard or the emergency services, very much gets you moved along rather than gets you answers. So yeah, it's being treated as a missing persons investigation in which there is very little information coming from the emergency services here, whether it is formal or informal.
Shingy, many thanks. We will be back in just a moment with a former chief constable discussing the tensions that exist when an investigation of this type meets with massive social media interest. Back soon. Welcome back. In missing persons cases, the first few days of the inquiry often prove pivotal. 7 days on from his disappearance, the family of Jay Slater remain hopeful for his safe return, but must also be aware that in circumstances like this, no news is usually bad news. Sue Sim was Chief Constable of Northumbria Police and led plenty of high-profile investigations, including the 2010 hunt for Raoul Moat after his 2-day shooting spree. Sue, great to have you back on the podcast. And this is an area of Tenerife that you actually know well.
Yes, it's one of my favourite parts of Tenerife. I visited it very, very often with my family. The only problem there is the very, very treacherous terrain. If you are not fitted with the correct walking gear, with the correct equipment, it is absolutely treacherous, unfortunately. Beautiful, but treacherous.
You are, like myself, obviously at a remove from what is taking place in Tenerife. But from your position, what is your assessment of the way in which the Spanish police, the Guardia Civil, have been handling this?
The Guardia Civil are doing everything they can with their resources, with their mountain rescue teams. And when I did the Raoul Moat investigation and we were searching for him, the mountain rescue teams were absolutely invaluable. They were fantastic. They are all adding all of their resources to try and find Jay. What I would say, having led massive inquiries of this type, is please do not spend time putting things onto social media. Please do not try and hamper this investigation in any way. If you have genuine intelligence or evidence as to where Jay might be, phone your local police. They will be able to get in touch with the Guardia Civil and they will pass any intelligence you have on to that organisation. The worst thing that people can do sitting at home in their armchairs is to speculate about what might have happened. There has been no suggestion of crime having been happened in this instance at this time.
And that is something we are going to talk an awful lot more about in just a second. But you mentioned there the resources that the Spanish police will be throwing at what is currently a missing persons investigation. Lancashire Constabulary have offered their assistance, but I suppose at times like this, that is probably just what you would do. I'm not entirely certain what practical assistance, police officers from Lancashire could offer on the ground in a place that is not their jurisdiction.
Well, first of all, you've got the jurisdiction issues, but then secondly, what they would be looking to send out probably are their search teams. Their search teams are used to searching in Lancashire. Let me reassure you, the terrain for any police search teams to get used to is absolutely different from anywhere in this country. I've heard it spoken to as being similar to Snowdonia. I know Snowdonia as well, very well. It's very, very different. They wouldn't be able to send anything over to support the Guardia Civil for a missing persons inquiry.
We are now, of course, a week on from the last confirmed sighting of Jay Slater. I don't want to be overly morbid here, but I do wonder, given the passage of time, whether there will now be a working assumption on the part of Spanish police that this is now a recovery operation?
They will be hoping that somebody has taken him in. As I've stressed before, this is a very, very remote area of Tenerife. And not everybody has television, not everybody has radio. It would, however, be very, very surprising if he'd been kept away for a week. So, yes, the chances are that this is now, unfortunately, a recovery operation. I must stress that the Guardia Civil have not said that.
Of course.
They are looking, they are trying their best to find him, but 7 days without water, which he said he had no water, without the appropriate clothing, that is a very, very long time to be alone in that sort of terrain.
I mean, you've mentioned already the huge efforts that are ongoing thanks to the Spanish police in Tenerife. What do you make of those Brits who have either cut short their holiday on Tenerife or indeed even flown out there directly with the express purpose of, in inverted commas, helping
I would
in the
appeal for
investigation?
people not to do that. The issue is the Guardia Civil and the mountain rescue team and the people that they have got involved are all trained in this area of work. To actually go along as a slightly upgraded armchair detective is not going to help Jay. If, as I repeat, if you have any intelligence, any information at all, phone your local police who will get it out to the Guardia Civil. Do not just go and trample over potential evidential trails. The other thing is, if people go out unprepared, then you could potentially be looking for more missing people.
But once again, we appear to find ourselves in a position where social media, the internet in general, is abuzz, is awash with people not simply speculating, idly speculating, but constructing, as some might go as far as to say, conspiracy theories about what has happened on the ground. What can the police, what indeed can Jay's family do to try and halt what I imagine you believe to be some pretty unproductive and unhelpful words from ill-informed people on social media?
I think social media can be an extremely helpful tool, but in this particular instance, I think it is very, very damaging to this inquiry. Do not, please, I would appeal to Jay's mum and his friends and to his family, do not read this rubbish. And I say that, not lightly, but this rubbish that is abounding about your son and your friend. Let the police do their job. And for people who have nothing better to do than to put conspiracy theories onto social media when there is a young man who is missing, all I can say is shame on you. It's absolutely appalling behaviour.
As you've already said, Sue, you yourself have been involved in some pretty high-profile investigations. What is it like to be the senior investigating officer in circumstances like this, where someone has gone missing, where there is an awful lot of media attention, and where there is an awful lot of social media attention?
What you have to do is you have to focus, and that's what the officer who's leading this investigation will be doing. I had the best piece of advice that I've ever received from my long-term communications director, who actually told me, do not start looking at social media. Make sure that you actually follow the facts. You have to remember that there is a family who is absolutely distraught about their missing relative and their missing friend. Don't go reading the social media and cause yourself problems and upset yourself. Have faith in the investigation. From what I can see, they are doing everything they can for a missing persons inquiry.
Sue, thank you. And that is your lot for today. We'll see you again tomorrow.